Hello my dear students, I am pleasure to meet you today. Today we are going inshallah to study a new lesson which is graphing trig functions, and if we have time we will solve some equations on trig functions. So concentrate with me here. If we have the function, the question is graph the function f of theta equals sine theta, and theta belongs to 0 and 2 pi, which means that from the angle 0 to 360 degrees. This is the period that we will graph. We have to find out the table. We have here a table like that. We will put x and y. Y means the function which is equal sine x. If we have a table like that, this is x and y. Y here equals sine x or sine theta. We have here, we can say theta and y. It's correct more for theta. Okay, if we put the angle 0 in your calculator, you put sine 0, it will be 0, and pi over 6. Pi over 6 means 30 degrees. You will find sine theta, which sine 30. Sine 30 will be 0.5, and 2 pi over 6. 2 pi over 6 means 60 degrees, and sine 60 by using your calculator will be approximately 0.87, and put 3 pi over 6 will be 90 degrees, and the answer will be 1. Put 4 pi over 6. Sine 4 pi over 6 means sine 120 degrees. In your calculator will be 0.87. 5 pi over 6, which is 150 degrees. Put in your calculator sine 150. The answer will be 0.5. 6 pi over 6, which is pi itself, which is 180 degrees. 180 degrees will be 0 again. Here, when the theta equals 0, the answer will be 0. Sine theta equals 0. And when it is 180 degrees, sine the angle will be 0 also. 7 pi over 6. Add 30 to 180 will be 210 degrees. Sine 210 will be negative 0.5. 8 pi over 6 will be 240 degrees, and it will be negative 0.87. 9 pi over 6, which is 270 degrees, will be negative 1. 10 pi over 2 over 6 will be 300 degrees, and it will be negative sine 300. Sine 300 in your calculator will be negative 0.87. And if we complete, we have 11 pi over 2 will be 330 degrees. Sine 330 degrees will be negative 0.5. And finally 12 pi over 6, which is equal to pi. 2 pi here will be 360. It is the last number. Sine 360 will be equal 0. Look carefully here. We have 0 when the angle will be 0 here. Sine 0 equals 0. And sine 6 pi over 6, which is 180 degrees, or pi equals 0 also. And sine 360 degrees will be 0. And concentrate also with this value. Sine 90 and sine 270. Sine 90 here will be 1, and sine 270 will be negative 1. So when we graph this function, okay, I have already, but we will clear it. Now we have a graph notebook like that, or graph paper. We have x-axis, y-axis like that. Okay, and we have also x-axis like that. Complete it. We have here y-axis and x-axis. We have to start from 0 and 0.2, 0.4, 0.6, 0.8 and 1. We will add 0.2 each time. And here the negative part will be negative 0.2, negative 0.4, negative 0.6, negative 0.8, and finally negative 1 will be here. We can expand. Okay, here is negative 1, and if we try to draw, we will have here, yes, the table. Concentrate on the table and the graph in the same time. When the value of theta equals 0, when theta here equals 0, okay, sine theta equals 0. So we will draw or plot the point here, 0 and 0. Pi over 6 will be 0.5, will be here. The middle between 0.4 and 0.6, this is pi over 6, and 2 pi over 6 will be 0.87, 0.8, and this 0.5, and up with 2 dashes or 2 millimeters will be 0.87. 3 pi over 6 here will be 1 itself. It's very easy. 4 pi over 6 here will be 0.87 also. 5 pi over 6 will be 0.5. Look carefully at it. This pi over 6 equals 0.5, and 5 pi over 6 equals 0.5, and 6 pi over 6, which is pi itself, will be 0. Okay, this point. And we have 7 pi over 6 will be negative 0.5. We have here negative 0.5. Okay, negative 0.5 here, and we have also these points. This is 0.87, this is negative 1, negative 0.87, negative 0.5, and finally here will be 0. These angles will be 8 pi over 6, 9 pi over 6, 10 pi over 6, 11 pi over 6, and 12 pi over 6, which is 2 pi itself, or 360 in degrees. Finally, we have some dots here. We will try to join them. Do not use ruler, just your hands. When join them, we have here these points like that. Join them smoothly. Yes, excellent. Now we have the sine function, graphing sine function. This is the function f of theta equals sine theta, and of course theta include between or starting from 0 and 2 pi, from 0 to 2 pi, or from 0 to 360 degrees. We can use all of them in your calculator, and here in x-axis or theta axis, this is f of theta, and of course it's theta. You must write here the radian measure. Do not write here the degree measure. Okay? Try to concentrate about this graph. We will study it well. It's very important for you to know the analysis of this graph. We have here 2 points are equal. Here, sine pi over 6, which is sine 30, equals 0.5, and the same as 5 pi over 6 will be 0.5, and also it repeated here in the negative part, okay, for 7 pi over 6 and 11 pi over 6, okay. And concentrate about the maximum value of this function. The maximum value here will be 1, and the minimum value here will be negative 1. So we have the maximum value of sine theta equal 1 and minimum value equal negative 1, and we have something we call it range. The range, it is included between negative 1 and 1. This function is periodic. What is the meaning of periodic? That means that this function will be repeat itself after 2 pi or after 360. It will start again and so on. This part will repeat after 0, after 360. If we add some angles here, it will be repeated again. Okay, so it's periodic, and its period here equal 360. Its period equal 2 pi or 360 degrees, because this figure will repeat again after that at the same figure or same shape. Okay, what about the domain? The domain, it's from negative infinity to infinity. Its domain equal r from negative infinity to infinity. So we can put the angle 0, 30, 60, 90, and so on, and negative 30, negative 60, negative 90, and so on, until mashallah. So it is infinity angle. The domain here starting from negative infinity to infinity. So we can draw here from left or from right y-axis. Okay, let's move to cosine rule. We will draw also the cosine function, and for keeping your time, you can make your table yourself like that. Here we have f of theta equal cosine theta. F of theta here equal cosine theta, and theta also include between, belongs to from 0 to 2 pi. That means that 0 and 360. And we have here theta and cosine theta. When theta equals 0, cosine theta will be 1. You can use your calculator. When theta equal pi over 6, the answer will be 0.87, and so on. You can complete your table yourself, keeping your time. You can use calculator, put the angle 0, it gives you 1. Put pi over 6 or 30 degrees, it gives you 0.87, and so on. And you can draw also the graph like that. We have here the graph. Concentrate with me. This is x-axis, which means the angle, represents the angle theta in radian measure. And we have also y-axis or f of theta like that. And we have here 0.2, and this is 0, 0.4, 0.6, 0.8, and finally 1. We have also 0, negative 0.2, negative 0.4, negative 0.6, negative 0.8, and negative 1. And we have this radian measure of 4 theta, pi over 6, which means 30 degrees, 2 pi over 6 means 60, and so on. 3 pi over 6, 4 pi over 6, 5 pi over 6, 6 pi over 6, which means pi itself, or 180 degrees, 7 pi over 6, 8 pi over 6, 9 pi over 6, 10 pi over 6, 11 pi over 6, and finally 12 pi over 6, which means 2 pi or 360 degrees. Now we have some points here. Pi over 6 gives 1 itself, and 2 pi over 6 gives 0.5. Okay. 3 pi over 6 gives 0, and this is 0.5, negative 0. This is negative 0.5, negative 0.87. It's negative 1 itself, negative 0.87, negative 0.5, and 0. And finally, this is a point, and we have this point also. And if we join them, at 0 here will be 1. So draw the curve smoothly like that. Yes. Now we have got the cosine rule. F of theta here equals cosine theta. Okay. Try to concentrate with me. What is the range? What is the minimum value? What is the maximum value? We have here the minimum value of this function will be what? Yes, minimum value here equals negative 1. And we have here maximum value. Maximum value here will be 1. So minimum value equal negative 1, and maximum value for cosine theta equals 1. And its range equal from negative 1 to 1, from minimum value to maximum value. Its range means from negative 1 here to 1 here. Okay. Its domain also equals from negative infinity to infinity, or equal R. R means here all real numbers, the set of real numbers, because we have here 0, pi over 6, 2 pi over 6, and so on to infinity. And we have here, we can write here negative pi over 6, negative 2 pi over 6, and so on to negative infinity. So this function will be periodic, and its period also equals 2 pi or equals 360 degrees, because this part, as you see, this part will repeated after 360 again, and will repeat from left side after 360 again. So it is periodic. That means at this period we have this figure will repeat again after 360 or after negative 360 from the left. And try to concentrate here. We have the values of 0 here, 3 pi over 6, cosine 3 pi over 6 equals 0, and also cosine 9 pi over 6 equals 0. Cosine 2 pi over 6, which is pi over 3, will 0.5, and cosine 10 pi over 6 will be 0.5. This is a part here, and cosine 0 will be equals 1, and cosine 2 pi or 360 will be also 1. This is the positive part. We have also negative part. It's the same. We have 4 pi over 6 equal negative 0.5 here, and the angle 8 pi over 6 will be negative 0.5 also, and this part, this angle 5 pi over 6 and this angle 7 pi over 6 will be equal approximately negative 0.87, and we have one value for negative 1 here, which is 6 pi over 6 or pi or 180 degrees. Okay, my dear students, if we imitate on the unit circle, we will remember something about unit circle here. If we have a circle, I have already a circle here. If we have a circle here, like that, and we will draw the unit circle, we know that the definition of unit circle is its origin point is the center. Okay, concentrate here with me. We will draw the unit circle for you. We have x-axis here, x dash, and this is y dash, and this is the origin point, which is the center of the circle. And also we have OB, you can say A, C, D here. OB here equals 1 unit, 1 length unit, because it's unit circle, and also this one, and also OC, OD, 1 centimeter or 1 unit length. And we know that we start from 0 angle here. This is 0 angle, and this is pi over 2 or 90 degrees. This is 0, 90, 180 degrees, or it's equal pi. Here 270 degrees, or 3 pi over 2. And again this angle will be 360 degrees, or 2 pi, or we say about it 0 degrees. Okay, when we study sine and cosine angle, we would like to draw 30 degrees as example. If we have here a 30 degree, like that, this is right angle triangle, and this is theta, which is equal 30 degrees. And you know that this ordered pair, root 3 over 2 and half. Okay, what is root 3 over 2? Root 3 over 2 is cosine the angle. Here is cosine theta, and here is sine theta. Here theta is 30, so cosine 30 will be root 3 over 2, and sine 30 will be half. Okay, and remember that it will repeat it here if we draw, or we will reflect this point on y-axis here, and reflect this point on x-axis also, and reflect this angle on the origin point, or reflected it on x-axis from this side. Here, okay, so no problem. Okay, we have here root 3 over 2 and half. Okay, this part will be another point. This x is negative x, so root 3 over 2 will be negative root 3 over 2, and still half, which is y here as it is. Here the point or the pair will be negative root 3 over 2 and negative half. That because x-axis here will be negative, and y-axis, this is O x dash, which is negative, OY dash with positive negative also, so negative half. Here, yes, x here will be positive, so it will be root 3 over 2. And we have also y is negative, so it's negative half. And concentrate that half will be repeat. We have half here, which is sine 30. And this is half, which what? Which is sine 100, 90 plus 30 here. It will be 150 degrees. This angle will be 150 degrees, which is 180 minus 30. Sine 180 minus 30 here equals sine 30. Why? Because here sine 30 equals half and sine 150 equals half. Okay? So we have the related angle as we said before. Sine 180 minus 30 equals sine 30. And because of sine is positive here and here, so sine 130 equals sine 30. This is equal half, and this is equal half also. We have no negative. When we imitate about cosine, we have cosine angle here, cosine 30. Cosine 30 here will be root 3 over 2. Cosine 30 will be root 3 over 2. And look carefully to this angle. This is cosine 30 also. But what is this angle? If we measure this angle from x-axis, like that, will be here negative 30. Concentrate with me. It's negative 30. So cosine 30 here equal cosine negative 30, which is root 3 over 2. So we can deduce that cosine negative theta equals cosine theta. It's very important to know why relations are like that. Cosine negative theta equal cosine theta, so in negative it's no matter about cosine. But when we study sine, we have here sine equal half, but sine here equal negative half. What is this angle and this angle? This angle is sine 30 equals half, and this angle is sine negative 30 and it's equal negative half. So we can deduce that sine theta equals negative sine negative theta, because negative goes there. So sine 30 equals half, sine negative theta 30 equal negative half. So when the negative will be on the angle of the sine, the negative goes out. So we can deduce that sine negative theta equal negative sine theta. So we have a deduction here, cosine negative theta equal cosine theta itself, no matter about negative, and we have seen why. Okay, but the sine negative angle equals negative sine the same angle, and of course tan will be deducted about that. And concentrate about the repeating of the values. We have here cosine 30 equal root 3 over 2, cosine 150 equal negative root 3 over 2, and cosine negative 30 or 360 equals root 3 over 2. like the graph. The graph here, cosine 60 here, 30 here, equals about root 3 over 2 or 0.87, and also the angle 11 pi over 6 equals the same, and pi over 3 here equals 0.5, and 10 pi over 6 equals the same, which is 0.5. So that explains the repeating in the unit circle and in the graph. Repeating of the values of sine and cosine. And we can brief this part like that. Concentrate, my dear students, about repeating of sine and cosine the angles. Sine the angles, sine 30 as example equal root 3 over 2, or sine 30 equals half, and sine 150 equals half also. Okay, let's now go to this paper again. Trying to discuss about general solutions. Okay, we have general solutions to solve equations in trig functions. We have this rule: if we have sine alpha equals cosine beta, then alpha plus or minus beta equals 90 plus 360 pi multiplied by n. We can write it pi over 2 plus 2 n pi, such that n here belongs to z. You know z, integer numbers, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on, negative 1, negative 2, and negative 3, and so on. Okay? So we have this rule: if sine alpha, sine an angle, we called it alpha, equal cosine beta, then we have this rule: the sum or the difference between the two angles equal 90 or pi over 2 plus 360 n pi or 2 n pi. Okay, if we take the reciprocal of these functions, we will have cosec alpha if it is equal sec beta. Cosec alpha is the reciprocal of sine alpha, and sec beta is the reciprocal of cosine beta. If we have these two functions are equal, so we will deduce that alpha plus or minus beta equals 90 degrees plus 360 or 360 pi multiplied by n, and we know n belongs to z. But we have exceptions here. The exceptions here: alpha doesn't equal n pi, and beta doesn't equal 2n plus 1 pi over 2. Why? Why these exceptions? We have here sec alpha equal cosec alpha equal sec beta. Cosec means 1 over sine. 1 over sine alpha means that forbidden for you to put this part equal 0. 1 over 0 is meaningless or undefined number. So you cannot put alpha with values that makes this part equal 0. What makes alpha here equal 0? this part. And we have n pi means 180 and its multiples. Yes. Let's see again. If we have this unit circle, we know that this point will be 0 and 1. 1 and 0, because x is 1, because the radius here equal 1, it's unit circle, and 0. Okay, and this is a 0 or 360 degrees. This point will be 0 and 1. This point will be negative 1 and 0. This point will be 0 and negative 1. And we know carefully that this part is cosine the angle. So cosine the angle here is 1. But sine 0 here is 0. Sine 0 here is 0. Sine 180 here is 0. So we cannot put sine 0 in the denominator. Okay? And here cosine pi over 2 or cosine 90 equals 0. And cosine 270 equals 0. And when we turn again and again, we will have many angles. Many angles, but its terminal side here in pi over 2 or 90 will give the cosine equals 0 and will give the cosine here equals 0. And here the sine also will be 0. Will be 0 at 0, 360 and its multiples, 180 and its multiples also. So it's forbidden for you to put sine alpha here n pi, and also it's forbidden to put 2n plus 1 pi over 2 for beta. Why? Because this is a sec. Sec means 1 over cosine beta. Cosine beta will be 0, as we said, in pi 0 in pi over 2 and 360 and 270. So we can move to the third rule. We have the third rule here, 3. If we have tan alpha equal cotan beta, like that, then we have alpha plus beta. Concentrate that it's only plus. Here plus or minus, sum or difference. Here also plus or minus, sum or difference. But here alpha plus beta equals 90 plus, concentrate well, 180n. This is for tan and cotan only, and you will study it next years, inshallah, because tan will be repeated, or its period 180 degrees, not 360 as sine and cosine. So alpha plus beta equal 90 plus 180 n, or we can put it like that, pi over 2 plus 180, or pi n. And you know that n belongs to z. Z is integer numbers, 0, 1, 2, 3 and so on, negative 1, negative 2 and 3, negative 3 and so on. Okay, and concentrate about exceptions. Alpha here doesn't equal 2n plus 1 multiplied by pi over 2, and for the same reason beta doesn't equal n pi, because we know that tan equals tan the angle equals sine the angle over cosine the same angle. It's forbidden for cosine to be 0 here, because it will be undefined number. So it's forbidden for alpha to be 2n plus 1 multiplied pi over 2. And we know that cotan beta equal cosine beta over sine beta, and forbidden for sine to be 0. The number that make beta sine beta equal 0, it's n pi, as we said before. Okay, my dear students, let's now try to solve some equations to find the values of theta if he give me an equation in the trig functions. So concentrate with me to draw them or to solve them. If he asked me, find the general solution of the equation cosine 2 theta equals sine 4 theta, then find the values of theta, okay, such that theta here belongs to what? Belongs to the open interval 0 and pi over 2. Try to find theta include between 0 and 90, and this is the equation now. Cosine 2 theta equals sine 4 theta. Concentrate well, my dear students, that this equation is turns to sine alpha equal cosine beta, and this means that alpha plus or minus beta equals 90 plus 360 times pi times n pi. Sorry, 360 times n. Okay, we have also alpha and beta, but we start with sine here because alpha minus beta here, not beta minus alpha. So we will exchange the arrangement of this equation. So we will write sine 4 theta first equal cosine 2 theta second. Okay, and we will have divide the page into twice, and here we will put 4 theta, okay, plus 2 theta equals 90 plus 360 n, and we will put here 4 theta minus 2 theta equals 90 plus 360 n. Here we have 6 theta equals 90 plus 360 n. We know n belongs to z. Okay, by dividing by 6, theta will be equal 15. Divide 90 by 6 and 360 by 6, and 360 divided 6 equals 60n. Here 4 theta minus 2 theta equals 2 theta equals 90 plus 360n. When we divide by 2, theta will be equal 45 plus 180n. Okay, he asked me to find the values of theta, but in this interval only. So put n here equals 0. When we put n equals 0, theta will be equal 15 plus 60 times 0 equals 0, so it's 15 degrees. When we put n equals 1, theta will be 15 plus 60 times 1, so it's equals 75 degrees. When we put n equals 2, theta here will be 15 plus 60 multiplied by 2, and it will be 135 degrees. And it's refused. Why it's refused? Because he asked me to find out theta from between 0 and 90. Okay? So we will take the solutions of this part only. We have theta equal 15 degrees here and equal 75 degrees here. So when we go the right side, when you put n equals 0, then theta equals 45 plus 0 equal 45 degrees, the first value for theta. When n equals 1, then theta equals 45 plus 180 multiply 1 equal 180. So it's equal 225 degrees, and this will be refused again because he asked me to find out only the angles between 0 and 90. Okay, so we will have this part from this side also. So we can write solution set or the values of theta. Here will be 15 degrees, 75 degrees, and finally 45 degrees. And this is the values of the angles 15, 75, 45 for this equation and for this condition, which theta belongs to the open interval 0 and pi over 2, or the angle is between 0 and 90 degrees. Okay. My dear students, solving equations in trig functions is very important for you, not only for this year, but also inshallah next years in secondary schools and third secondary. So we will try to solve another equation now. If we have an equation like this, he asked me find solution set or find values of theta. Okay. Values of theta here, f 2 sine theta equal minus 1 equals 0, and his condition is theta belongs to from 0 between 0 and 90 degrees. Okay, if we have this equation now, we can put it 2 sine theta equals 1, and 2 sine theta equals 1 means sine theta equals half, because we divide by 1 here. So sine theta equals half. Concentrate about the sign of this function. Now, the sign is positive, okay? And we know that sign is positive in first and second quadrant. First quadrant, if the angle will be alpha, the second will be 180 minus alpha, this part 180 plus alpha, 360 minus alpha. Okay, in your calculator you will press the buttons shift, then sign, then we put half. Even this number will negative, you will not put negative, you will put only positive, because negative or positive will be discussed about the quadrants. So put press shift, sign half, and the angle C alpha here will be 30 degrees. Okay, and we know that this function is positive, and it is positive in the first and second quadrant. First quadrant, that means alpha equals 30 itself, and the second quadrant means that we have to find out the result of 180 minus 30 will be 150 degrees. So theta now equals this part, this function, this degrees, and theta also equals 30. So solution set will be 30 and 150. As we know before, that 30 and 150 gives the half. Okay, my dear students, thank you for watching, and try to study well to be ready to exam, inshallah. Goodbye and good luck.